Hi, everyone, and welcome to our workshop on goal setting titled From Vision to Action. Here, we're going to talk about how you can take an idea or a concept and really transform it from just a vision all the way through a goal, and then follow up steps to really be sure that you're coming into fruition with that goal. So I'm going to start by, again, explaining why we're here. So when we were thinking about workshop topics, we really realized that a lot of people set goals without having a vision for their overall picture. And vision is really what drives us as leaders. We really want to be able to take that long-term vision and turn it into several goals to be sure that we're following through with our actions. So today we're going to discuss not only how to create this vision, but also how to effectively goal set to turn this vision into a reality. So before we begin, a little bit about myself. My name is Haley Corley. I go by she, her pronouns, and I serve as the graduate assistant for leadership development. And if we were to do this workshop in person, my student leadership consultant, Dove, also she, her pronouns, would be presenting this workshop with me. But for the virtual recording, I'm going to go ahead and present solo. So here's a little roadmap of our overall workshop. We're going to start by talking about vision, that overall sense of direction in a leader and how to sometimes accomplish that vision, but then also take that vision and set some goals. So our second section will center on goals. And then our third one, we'll talk about creating an action plan to really achieve those goals, following up with some checkpoints, and then ending on how we acknowledge accomplishments and how that step really wraps up the goal setting process. So let's go ahead and jump right in with analyzing the vision. So the question we have on the slide is, what is your motivation? So really, when you're looking at vision, it's not only where you want to be, you should also be thinking about what is motivating you. What is the why behind your vision? And we'll get into that here in a second. So first, if we were in person today, I would ask you what vision is. And we title this as vision is our why. So vision is the reason, the overall reason for your goals rather than what the goal is itself. And if we were in person, we'd start asking people maybe what are some of their long-term visions. I know as a student leader, for example, I really had an overall goal of ensuring success within my position. That's not really one goal. It can be defined as many small goals to really reach that overall success. But that would be an example of what my vision was in that leadership position. We hope that our student leaders here have multiple visions. And even if you're just starting out in your leadership journey, that you look at why, what your why is. Like, why are you here at Kent State? Why are you in the certain major that you're in? Why are you taking on this leadership position? And that should start to create a vision for you. So how do we find this why? And at the Leadership Center, there's many, many ways we acknowledge to find out what your why is or to start to define your purpose. But to identify your why, we suggest starting with your core values and what that desired outcome looks like. So before I said as a student leader, I really wanted my organization and myself as a leader to reach success. But that can be many different things. So looking at my core values, really helps solidify what the desired outcome is. Thinking of honesty, integrity, responsibility as some of my core values really helped me realize, like, how as a leader can I reach that success through my core values. If I know that I value responsibility, that's something that's super important to me as a leader, then overall success as a leader looks like me following through with my responsibilities, me not falling short on any of those said responsibilities. And we really encourage you to do this, whether it's just, like I said before, in a small role. Maybe you're just starting out in your leadership journey, or in those big roles, maybe you're a president of an organization, or in like a high level cabinet position, that this can still be relevant to you as well. So what are core values? I gave a few examples of my core values in the last slide, but core values are what you hold dear to your heart. So there are things that you see yourself in relation. They're really just values or qualities that you would like to have and that are core to you or integral to you as a person. So our core values are really what drive us. And if you need help finding your core values, the Leadership Center has some resources for you. There's a lot of free resources out there to talk about how to develop your values and how to identify what are like the top 5 values for you as an individual. And then also lastly, desired outcome. So understanding your desired outcome in detail will also help motivate and inspire you. So like I said before, I knew where I wanted to be, but I didn't really know how to get there. And understanding that end result will really help motivate and inspire you. So here's an example of that process. So a vision. So maybe your vision for in this example, it can be a silly example, but is to lose weight. So that's a goal many people have, but they don't really understand maybe the why around it. So we pose the question, why? And to identify why, we try to identify some values and what the desired outcome really is. So in this example, maybe the value is sustaining a mobile and active lifestyle. It's not really about the weight loss. It's about thinking about I value being active and I value being on the go and being able to move my body. Those are things that maybe this individual values. So this means that one of those core values could be a certain level of health and well-being as well. Once we've identified that desired outcome and those core values, you begin to feel better in your own body. So now you have motivation to really reach that goal or being able to define what are some goals to reach that overall vision. Our next section, we're going to talk about the goal setting process, and this is where it gets a little bit more tangible. Visions can seem very big and lofty, but goals on the whole are something that anyone can accomplish. They can be broken down into small chunks, as we'll talk about today, but there are really ways to get to that overall vision. And even if you struggle getting to that vision, you can at least set a few goals along the way. So if we were in person today, I would have you complete a snowball activity. So we would write goals on pieces of paper, crumple them up, throw them around. People would pick up a paper, hopefully other than their own, and share out some of those goals. And I would foresee in a classroom type setting or in a school type setting, like Kent State, that we would have some goals that are related to academics, maybe to get a good grade on a paper, to pass a class, to do well on a presentation. We would probably also have some that are personal. So maybe your goal is to save money this month, or your goal is to be healthier. Those could be some goals that we might hear in this workshop if we did this in person. But the point of this activity would be to see how broad and diverse our goals can be. So goals can be small, just something as getting an A on a paper, but they can also be loftier, like graduating with a degree. Those are things that both are goals, but they're going to take multiple different steps to get to that end result. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. Okay, so next we're going to talk about tips for successful goal setting. Our number one tip is to make your goals specific. If you make your goals too lofty or too broad, then you're really setting towards that overall vision potentially instead of the goal itself. So an example of a specific goal in my terms would be to graduate with my master's degree in student affairs administration. That's a goal I'm working towards. That's pretty specific. I had my level of degree, my field, and the overall goal of graduation. If you just said to graduate college, especially if you're a first year student, that doesn't really give you an overall goal to reach for, other than that's maybe the overall vision. Making that goal a little bit more specific, maybe adding a degree in there, will help you start to chunk some of those action pieces as we talk about that later in our presentation. The next step is to make your goal measurable. So measurable goals are things that you can see when you accomplish. An example of something that wouldn't be measurable is if the goal doesn't have an end result. So for example, my goal of graduating with my master's degree in higher education can be measured. At the end of this semester or next semester, when I walk across the stage and get that diploma, you will see that I have accomplished that goal. Unmeasurable goals tend to be things that can't be measured, maybe like characteristic based, that really don't lend itself to seeing yes or no, we have accomplished that goal. Next is making the goal attainable. So nobody likes to feel like they're stuck in place. And to really feel like we're moving forward, our goals need to be things that we can attain. They need to, maybe they're in steps. You have easy goals at first and they get progressively harder as we go on. But they still need to be things that are like relevant to us as individuals, but also are able to be reached. If not, it's really hard to celebrate those small wins. And as we talk about our action plan later, we want to feel a sense of accomplishment. And for that to happen, they have to be attainable. Our next step is to make them relevant. So I touched on this earlier, but they should be relevant to your overall vision. So that vision that we talked about earlier can really guide those goals and help shape what they look like in the terms of success. And then lastly, timely. So I've also heard this said as time bound, but they need to have a time frame attached to them. They need to make sense. If I said, for example, right now that my goal was to graduate with a degree in or a bachelor's degree in a science, well, that's not really timely to my overall experience right now. That's something that I could go on and do later down the road, but I already have a bachelor's degree and I'm working towards my master's in a different field. So making sure that first of all, they're relevant to the time frame, but then also have some type of time attached to them will really help steer you in the overall goal setting process. So if you looked at the first letter of each word, you'll see that they're capitalized. And you may have heard about SMART goals before. So this is the breakdown for SMART goals. We just went through it. We gave you some ideas on how those different acronym words or letters can stand for these things and how they can actually manifest in a goal itself. But I've found that when students hear SMART goals, they tend to tune out. They've heard it before. They've heard about goals being SMART. But it's easier when you start to walk through some of these examples of the why is this important, that we really start to see that SMART goals can really benefit our overall success. Another tip that we have for successful goal setting is to write your goals down. So it's really great if you're sitting there and you think of a great goal, but if you don't put it anywhere, if you don't write it down, if you don't put it in a planner, in your phone, put a reminder in there to think about it, it can get lost really easily. And then we're always constantly re-goal setting. So we suggest from the Leadership Center that you write everything down, whether it be a small goal to a large goal. So next we're going to talk about action planning, or how to accomplish these sets of goals. First, to start off, what is an action plan? I know we have action plans in different areas of our life, but for the sake of this workshop, an action plan is designed to guide your way to accomplishing your goals. It turns your vision into actionable goals and steps and helps you stay focused and motivated. The reason I love this definition so much is not only does it talk about goals being part of an action plan, but it also alludes to that vision that we talked about earlier and helps get that vision into actionable items and steps. It also helps us stay on track, which can be really helpful when maybe we have goals in competing areas of our life. So in person, we would ask the audience, why is a good action plan necessary for success? And to me, a good action plan can really help us take that vision into reality, as we talked about earlier. It can help you break down your goals into manageable steps. It can also help really steer you in the direction of your vision. So that would be personally why I think an action plan is really necessary for us to succeed, especially in goal setting. So you might be sitting there thinking, well, how do I action plan? What are some tips and tricks that you have for us? So our first step tips and tricks for you is to gather a list of goals and prioritize them. So look at all of your goals and think, what's the most important to me? And start there. Don't start with the goal that's like, maybe not yet. Start with the goal that's the most relevant and the most timely for you, or the most important. Next, identify resources that you'll need to reach that goal. So we know we don't exist in a bubble. There's maybe people or items that we need, or we need to be in a certain area of our life to really accomplish that goal. And all of those can be resources. Another resource can just be time. Maybe there's a monetary attachment to that goal in particular. So start to think, what do I need in terms of resources to reach that goal? Then you're going to take your goal and start to break down the steps to achieving it. This can start super simple. Maybe your goal is to graduate college, like I said before, with a certain degree. You might start by saying, well, I need to pass this class this semester that I'm really struggling with in order for me to not have to retake it. Then it might be things about next semester, things about registering for courses. Those are smaller goals that could fit into that overall end goal of graduation. Passing all your classes, yes, would be great. But unless you know what are some steps that I need to get there, it's not going to end up being a good action plan. And lastly, start to visualize your action plan in a manner that works best for you. So we have a few examples of this. And really, we encourage you to do some research. If one plan isn't working for you or you don't like the layout of one of our plans, that's completely fine. Action plans can take many shapes and sizes, but they really are for the benefit of the individual who's goal setting. So that's what's great about them, is that you can mix and match. You can look up some other examples, but here's just a few that we found. So this is our first template. And this takes one goal. As you can see, you would list your goal and then list different action steps. It states if this was a team, you could put who's responsible, but if it's just yourself, you're the person responsible. It has some start dates, some milestones, due dates, resources that you would need, and then what does that look like, the desired outcome. So this is great for breaking down one goal. The next one is a corrective action plan. So this would be an example of if something goes wrong and you have a goal to fix it. So this is more of that retroactive or that reactive response to having to have a goal. So you would maybe describe the issue, the desired outcomes, or your goals there to correct the issue. If you had somebody who's like an accountability buddy or somebody who's checking in, you could put their name there. And then your different goals, actions, resources, some stakeholders, maybe some things that would keep you from getting there. This is more of that corrective response. Next is a strategic action plan. So again, you're starting with one overall goal, and then here you're pulling in different actionable steps. So this one just has 4, but you could do as many as you would like. And again, it has the responsible person, which if it's an individual, it's yourself. If it's a team, you could divvy up responsibilities. It also talks about resources. This one includes progress. So maybe how will you know that you're making progress on that goal? A completion date, and then evidence of improvement. So again, how do we know that this step is actually helping? So again, those are 4 or 3 really good examples of what an action plan could look like. But again, you're not limited to that. You can really do some research and find, what works best for you as an individual. We're going to transition now to, hopefully you have a vision in mind. You've maybe thought about some goals during this workshop, and maybe you have a plan to create that action plan. But now we're going to talk about what happens after the action plan. How do we ensure that we're really making progress? And for that, we're going to talk about checkpoints. So how to keep yourself accountable. A checkpoint to us is just a marker to identify progress. It's a check-in of some sort to ensure that you're moving towards that overall goal. And what can this checkpoint be? So you can use goals in your action plans as checkpoints. So if there are specific measurable action item steps, those could be your checkpoints along that overall goal. When you do achieve maybe one goal, it could be your checkpoint to the overall visualization or your vision. But essentially, it can be really anything that helps you check in and ground yourself and notice where your progress is. Once you've completed a goal, you can check in with yourself and see your progress towards that end goal. So like I said before, it can just be anything that recenters yourself on that overall vision that really checks in with your progress. After you've created some checkpoints, after you've thought about checkpoints, how will we know when we accomplish something? I think acknowledging accomplishments is so important, and we'll talk about this here in just a moment, but if we're not acknowledging our accomplishments, it can be really hard to feel a sense of success. And that's why we put acknowledging accomplishments as our final piece in this vision to action timeline. So like I said before, to acknowledge accomplishments, you should be celebrating your wins. This can be big or small. When you start to celebrate those small wins daily, it can really motivate you, increase morale, and really help you in that overall vision It can help you get to that overall vision because you'll stay motivated. You'll see progress, whether it be just a small step or a giant leap in the direction of your vision. When you get to a checkpoint, look back and see what you've accomplished. So, this is something to recenter yourself. Once you accomplish a goal or once you accomplish a step towards a goal, look back and see how many steps you've accomplished. Maybe it's just one, and that's okay. You still have accomplished something and you should celebrate that small win. But maybe you'll see I'm on step 4 towards that overall goal, or I've accomplished 3 goals this month. How great does that feel? It really recenters your perspective and shows your overall growth, which can help you start to achieve more and more as you go on. So, again, we've talked a lot today. We've gone through analyzing a vision. What is a vision? Then we've moved on to goal setting, and we've talked about some tips for goal setting utilizing the SMART goal acronym. We've then talked about action plans. So, overall, our action plan to achieve our goals and why that's important. We've also talked about checkpoints and how checking in on your goals can be really an important step in overall success. And then lastly, we've talked about what happens after we achieve our goals, acknowledging our accomplishments and celebrating those small wins. And so while this may seem like a lot, we hope that today you'll take each of these steps and maybe try to just accomplish one of them. Again, not trying to set a small goal for you, but maybe you just need to identify your why. And that can be great. That can help overall align the goals that you already have. Or maybe you're someone sitting here knowing your vision, but you just didn't know how to set great goals, or you didn't know how to create an action plan to really help you achieve those goals. So we hope today that you take at least one piece of this workshop and really sit down and try to do some self searching to take your vision from just a vision to a reality. Okay, so that is all for our content. But before we wrap up, I do want to give you some upcoming events. So if you're watching this, hopefully before the 28th, the Leadership Center is hosting the Leadership Challenge with the LGBTQ plus Center. This is a really fun activity-based event where we take a minute to win it style challenge, and we have people compete in teams of 4 to 6. And you're competing for gift cards, but you're competing in a fun sense of doing an activity that tests your communication, problem solving, and collaboration. And it's really fun to see the overall process of going through this team building activity. You can come as an individual, or if you have 4 to 6 people that would like to compete together, you are more than welcome to come. So we welcome anyone to come compete for the chance to win some gift cards in this really fun activity. And then we want to hear from you. So let us know what you thought about this workshop. There is a place for some like future topics. So let us know what you think. We always value your feedback, and we always do look at it to improve the student experience in our workshops. And then lastly, if you want to stay up to date on our upcoming events, scan the QR code and sign up to receive our biweekly newsletter. There we include all of our events as well as campus events to stay connected and to get involved on campus, whether it be in leadership or in other areas. And then that's it. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions, please email lead@kent.edu. We're always here for you. If you have questions about how to get involved, or maybe a goal that you have that you want someone to give a double check to, we're here. There's also our phone number and then our Instagram and Twitter handle. We do post all of our events to social media as well, so feel free to give us a follow.